Hello, everyone. I'm Frederic Martinez, Scientific Affairs Director at Neogen. Welcome to our session. I'm very pleased to see you here in order to discuss about leveraging food safety as business performance driver, balancing risk, efficiency, and success. We have 4 speakers today. I'm delighted to welcome them to speak about the way we are going to change from business performances to change from business. So the goal is to go to business performances when we were before on compliance-driven companies. So the difference between compliance and performances will be explained during the session. This is a point of view international. We have people coming from different regions, 2 speakers from the United States, 1 speaker from Switzerland, and the other one from Madrid, Spain. And I'm French, so as you can see, it's quite global. So first, I would like to start to introduce to you Dr. Raoul. So Dr. Raoul is Senior Manager for Quality, Environmental Safety and Health Control at Coca-Cola, a Euro-Pacific partners. So he's in charge of Europe and all the Pacific plants for Coca-Cola. Raoul started his career in the Coca-Cola bottling plant in Barcelona as a quality operator over 15 years ago. And since then, has held different roles in quality and food safety systems. Raoul's current responsibility includes leadership of microbiology and standardization. So thank you, Raoul.
Thank you, Frederic. So as Frederic has started, we are going to talk about moving from compliance to performance. So let's start to look about how the food safety and quality compliance has evolved. So if we take a look 30 years ago, basically we are talking basic hygienic rules, pathogen control, basic traceability and allergen management. Nowadays, we have international norms, local regulations, internal requirements that are continuously reviewed and updated. The food factories must have hazard analysis and risk-based preventative control, followed by rigorous traceability and allergen management. And since a few years ago, it has been introduced also the need to care about quality and food safety culture and sustainability. This increase on the quality and food safety compliance has not been followed by the same increase on resources that are dedicated to the quality and food safety compliance. So this has created a lot of pressure into the quality and food safety representatives. This pressure is also emphasized by the circle of the quality and food safety compliance that, after external issues, is reviewed and updated. So the pressure is even increased further. It seems that moving away from this circle, the only solution is having an internal issue, then we break the circle, we involve other departments from the supply chain, and the pressure is released for the quality and food safety representatives. In a survey conducted by Gartner in 2019, it was highlighted that 60% of employees believe that their peers are circumventing the quality process. So on top of this, it was shown that just emphasizing the value on the quality process is not improving the adherence to this quality process. To the contrary, having clarity on the execution steps and on the accountability is really emphasizing the adherence to the quality processes. So in Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners, we are trying to move from this circle of compliance that is creating a lot of pressure into the quality and food safety representatives to a circle of engagement, trust, and performance, where all the employees are involved. We are doing this by our campaign, Powering Quality Together. It sounds better, powering quality together, than powering food safety and quality together, but at the end, it means the same, where we are engaging with all the employees in order that they feel the accountability and of their quality process, and by this means, we can guarantee what we always say, the perfect serve for all of our consumers. And with this, I'll hand over to Frederick. Thank you.
Thank you, Raoul. So now thank you, Raoul. And now it is time for Dr. Lone to present a point of view. She's the principal and founder of Cultivate SA. She's based in Switzerland, as I said previously, and Lone has worked to improve food safety through organizational culture improvement for almost 20 years. Since she started at Maple Leaf Foods in 2004, Lone serves as vice chair of the International Food Protection Training Institute board and a director on the Stop Foodborne Illness Board.
Merci.
Thank you, Dr.
Merci, Frédéric. Good afternoon. Hey. So I have 5 minutes, which I cannot see. Thank you. And I'd like to pick up on what Raoul talked about trust and performance, moving from compliance to performance. We've had the pleasure of working with about 160 companies across the last 10 years, and we measured food safety culture, and we're also now able to say something around some of the leading indicators for food safety culture and how that builds on, do you have that engagement from your frontline staff? The first one is around stability. In our top 30 clients over the last 3 years, we've seen a 61% turnover in who heads up food safety and quality for them. So stability is not something that we can say that those companies have from a food safety leadership perspective, and we know it impacts how mature their food safety culture is. The second one is around leadership presence. So how often will somebody on the front line actually see who's in charge of the company? And we have seen and measured that we can actually show a 51% improvement in GMP performance if the company has an institutionalized way of saying, put your leaders through Gemba walks on the plant floor and have that very meaningful connection. The third one is around team health, and it really builds very strongly on Raoul's point, which is to say, when we measure our psychosocial factors, which is, do I feel that I have a sense of belonging with the team I'm part of? Am I supported by my supervisor? Am I supported by my managers, etc.? We can see a 21% reduction in near-miss findings. Or more findings. So people are actually speaking up more. They will say when they see something they don't think is quite wrong or right, and therefore we can say higher team health, more near misses raised, and therefore we can be more risk-oriented, and Martin is going to talk much more about that. The last one of these leading indicators, frontline obsession. So this really means that the more you engage your front line, in this case across 7 companies, we've been able to demonstrate a 49% improvement in cost of quality if you have an obsession with involving your frontline team members. And use frontline really broadly here. So frontline can be your frontline team members in sales, operations, in a store. It can be anybody that's really at that very front line where decisions are made on a daily basis. So if we look at those and then say, okay, so how do you get to these kinds of improvements? We use a maturity model. Nobody can read it. Don't worry, there's not going to be a test. But what you can also do is ask yourself these 2 questions. Why are you focusing on food safety culture in the first place? Who are participating in your food safety risk assessments? And the reason why those 2 are also, we can't prove this statistically at the moment, but I believe that we can in the future, the answers to these can actually also be part of the leading indicators for you. Because if you are in that light blue quadrant or box up there, then it means that it's mostly everything happens because you have to be compliant, and you're not in that lower purple box where you do things because it's about improving your business and being performance-oriented. Let's look at a case. We started working with this client in 2020, and it was really, in 2020, the focus was the CEO owned the strategy for what they were going to do different for food safety. 2021, it was all about presence and structure. So leadership presence, being on the floor, engaging with frontline team members, changing the organizational structure from a reporting relationship of food safety into operations, food safety now directly into CEO. 2022, very big focus on learning and development and indicators. So let's make sure we're building competencies up. People actually know what they're supposed to do. And also now they have much stronger indicators. So the 4 that you looked at before, they all measure in this company. Now we're getting into the brown box here. It's actually sort of orange. But in 2023, it was all about middle management change planning. So now it's sort of the organization shifted their focus as for who is making change here from the top of the house into the middle of the house. And they could do that because they now had that commitment that we have indicators, people know much more around what they're supposed to be doing, and also it was non-negotiable whether people actually did this or not, and now middle management was really set up to take charge. 2024, we were into, and this was last year, really deep plant change planning. So now it was about the management teams in the plants owning what they wanted to do, and that then gets consolidated up. 25, it is to be confirmed because we're just in the change planning process with them. What this shows is that they are actually able to shift over these 5 years from a very reactive, being compliant type situation into where it's business performance, and this is what it did for them. The bars are their maturity scores. As you can see, they started in 2020 at a 1.8, and they went up to a little over 3, what we measured that they're acting on in 25. But here's what's really important. This is cost of their non-conformance, which in this case is foreign material findings. Wasn't measured, as you saw before, in the 2 first years. Peaked up here in 23, and now we're seeing a drop. So there's a bit of a lag between measured food safety performance and maturity of their culture, which I think all of you should also be just well aware of. I'm going to stop talking because my 5 minutes is up, and I'm going to give it back to Fredrik. Thank you.
Thank you. So now time for me to introduce you to Dr. Martin. So Martin Wiedmann, who is Gellert Family Professor at Food Safety at Cornell University, based in the United States, as I said previously. Martin's research includes the application of molecular tools and quantitative and modeling approaches to study the transmission of foodborne pathogens and spoilage organisms. He and his team are regularly asked to help industry across the world with a range of microbial food safety and quality challenges.
Thank you. So when we talk about balancing risk, as the title promises, we first need to have the tough discussion. How do you measure risk? If we get that wrong, we're not going to get out of the starting block. And I think that's what's still happening very often. The traditional measures of risk is public health risk. How many people do we make sick? How many people do we kill? Works great for public health agencies, does not work for businesses, okay? Because no one is going to say we make X people sick a year. No one wants that as a metric. Therefore, we need to have other and different metrics. If we stick with public health risk, our goal is 0, and that's not going to get us to any point where we can actually balance risks in food safety with anything else. So we need to start out with quantifying risk as enterprise-related risks. And that could be the risk of a recall. With what I'm currently doing, my current portfolio, what's my risk of a recall? Do I have a 1% chance in a given year? A 5% chance? What's the magnitude of the recall? Is it 1 day's worth of product? Is it 180 days worth of product? And what's the cost? Well, unless we move to those metrics, we're going to be stuck in where we are in a zero-risk food safety system that is not working. So once we have that risk metrics, what do? How do we move towards balancing? We perform a quantitative risk assessment that tells us what's our current risk in its simplest iteration. We say we have X process, this is our risk of recall in a given year, and then business can decide whether that risk is acceptable or not. 1% chance of recall with a cost of $1 million, acceptable or not, that's a business decision. But then I can try to decide Do I want to move my risk? Do I want to have less risk? If I want to move my risk, what can I do and what is the cost of it? I can introduce the idea of opportunity cost. If I move money from here to there, can I reduce my risk further, but for the same amount of investment? Can I move money from testing to prevention? And does that give me a risk reduction that I can talk about because it's risk of recall? We need to get to that to improve food safety and to drive continuous improvement and to be able to balance food safety with other things. How does that practically look? This is a risk assessment was done with regard to salmonella in almonds. And it's very exciting because our risk is 0.5 cases, so less than 1 case a year. And that's close to 0 as I want to be. However, we need to recognize that it's only that risk if my raw material has low levels and if I sell 30,000 kilograms. Not that much, right? So we need to modify our risk when we have our risk assessments to say what is changing. Do we have changes in a unique situation? Do we have changes in pathogen levels? Then our risk assessment needs to be updated. Do we have changes in customers? And this is an important one that I want to drive home because we've seen issues with that. And we've had that mentioned. We had 3 Listeria outbreaks over the last few years that taught us that we need to pay attention to the customers. We need to pay attention to particularly immunocompromised customers and immunocompromised people. First example, frozen supplemental shakes in the US, products specifically designed for long-term care facilities. We had a big Listeria outbreak. Deli meats caused by liverwurst. I get criticized for that, but wherever I go, I say, if you sell liverwurst, you pretty well know that it's mainly old people who eat it, so that's a high-risk group. I'm sure there's someone young in here who eats liverwurst, don't hate me. We had an outbreak, deli meats, linked in Germany, where the public health authority specifically called this out. We advocate for communication of deli meat as high risk and advocating for specific practices. How do you use that practically when you balance risk? If this were me, I would look at my portfolio, I would talk to my salespeople, find out which of my SKUs go into high-risk populations, and then I'm going to put my best facility with my best sanitation crew and everything on that product line because that's a higher-risk product line. There we can start to balance and do precision food safety to manage risks better. With that, I'll turn it over back to Frederick.
So last but not least, Sharam Alamian, Senior Director at Global Quality and Food Safety Governance at McCormick, a company based, as I said, in the United States with more than 20 years of experience in quality management. Sharam leads the strategic planning, design, and execution of global food safety and quality management systems at McCormick. He is an ASQ certified food safety and quality auditor, a certified quality engineer, and a certified Sigma 6 black belt.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Great. I'm the last, so I got to make sure that I have your attention. So I would like to start before I talk about proactive risk management. And one of the principles that we have in McCormick, and that is the taste you trust. And when we talk about trust, it's really important to marry that with the proactive risk management because trust comes from consistency, comes from transparency, and that's where the proactive risk management comes because when we try to prevent the issues from happening, that helps us to bring the consumer trust, and also it helps the brand. So the view that we have in McCormick around the proactive or preventive risk management is around the principle of the high performance and engagement. Those two are key aspects of the model that we follow. Essentially, operational excellence comes where we can achieve the eradication of the loss or the reduction of the loss, and also when that comes with the engagement of the people. So these two key principles are embedded into different areas of our system. We also look at beyond just product because really delivery, it comes through the system. And the best performance for us, it comes when this operational excellence comes from outside of quality, comes from our partners, such as supply chain, such as procurement, such as maintenance. And in our experience also, the facilities that are better in safety and food safety also run better. So with that, we also have a heavy focus on the defense system. The defense system are there to ensure that when an incident happens, when a defect happens, we can find them and we can make sure that they don't get to the consumer. We're also heavily focusing on leading indicators, especially the leading indicators as it relates to performance and also the engagement. I'll give you an example. For example, we have internal audit system, such as many other food manufacturing facilities in every site that we have. When we talk about internal audit, we just don't look at the score. We look at the engagement. Who is doing the internal audit? Typically, there's a group of members as part of a team that do that. We look at that as a metric. We also look at the repeat findings that they have. We also look at the on-time corrective actions versus just the score. With that said, I do want to talk about design a little bit. So, we can't talk about proactive risk management if the design is not correct. A lot of times, process management by itself is not going to be able to deliver the prevention. And, it's important that whenever there's an opportunity for the design, the principles are embedded. We have heavily invested in hygiene by design. We also have heavily invested in trying to remove administrative controls to engineering controls, or try to start with the systems that basically they don't create the defects. So aside from these principles, I do want to talk about data and data digitalization and transformation, because we are in an era where data management is important. And we have started a journey that this journey is coming along with the strategy around digitalization and transformation. Data is very important in where we live right now in this time. Data helps us to find the issues sooner. Data helps us to prevent those issues before they occur. So with that, this strategy helps us throughout the next decade to navigate through the transformation and digitalization. Cost, obviously, is a key factor. The way that we try to justify the cost is through the risk avoidance and operational efficiency. And frankly, that's a challenge. So, we are used to seeing ROI typically as a cost metric, and we have to basically work overall as an industry to better justify the cost. And finally, the industry also is an infancy of tool development when it comes to digitalization and AI. Therefore, it's important to have patience and also to have the courage, because perfect doesn't come, but also you have to start the journey. With that, I'll pass to you for questions.
Yes.
Sure.
So, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was too short, but it is a deal. And before we go to your questions, I would like to thank all of you, because it was not so easy in a short time to summarize how to manage this new approach of the risk management, risk assessment with performances. And they did it very well. So thank you very much. So now it's time for questions. I hope you have a lot, because personally I have a lot of questions for them. So who is ready to start? And see here.
Thanks. I had a question for you about how you implement these types of attitudes with your supply chain. So are these principles for encouraging food safety as a business performance enhancer also communicated to your suppliers to incentivize them to adopt the same practices?
Is that for me? Yes. Thanks for the question. So it comes through engagement with the suppliers and creating a mutual collaboration, really culture, I would say, between the partners that we have as the suppliers. It also comes with clarification, transparency, and ensuring that they know what exactly we want. For example, in the past few years, we have developed a McCormick addendum for the suppliers. So they are clear about the expectations that we have and ask them to go through that. And also, it's also important that when there are issues and when there are failures, we actually have the mentality of the partnership. We basically come along as a team and help each other. So it's a combination of tool, it's a combination of culture, and also the process.
I think another part of it is to understand what your suppliers measures and how they measure themselves, and then how you reward them, and see whether there are any discrepancies, right? I think we all love KPIs, well, maybe not all of us, but you all need to think about what are their KPIs, what are your KPIs, what are you imposing on them, and are you really encouraging the behavior you want, or do you not? Like, more testing. All right, we're gonna want you to do more testing, I see this all the time. All right, but price negotiation happens too every year, every 3 years. So now you want more tests, but I still got to come in at a price where I'm going to get your business. Well, got to get the money from somewhere. What am I going to do? Get rid of my expensive food safety people, hire a bunch of kids right out of high school to be in charge of food safety. All right, there's a lot of testing that's not going to compensate for that. We need to think about that. These are the other consequences we see. And I give an extreme example, right? No one in this room would do it, but I've seen it happen.
Thank you.
I think you have to take a risk approach to that one as well. So look at your supply chain, see if you have a significant elevated risk because of your supply base, then I would probably start there. If I think I have larger risks internally in my company and I need to get my house in order before I start to speak with my suppliers about it, then I would take that decision. So 9 out of 10 times the companies we work with start internally, because you almost need to get to a certain level of maturity in your own organizational culture before you can start to then work collaborative with your supply base as well. So I think it's one of these elephants. I don't like to say it, but you pet it one pet at a time. You don't need elephants anymore, right? But yeah, I would say there's a risk element to that as well.
I totally agree with Long. We first look internally how we can really put the house under control. But together with this, we need to work with the suppliers, and more than suppliers, we need to make a relationship of partnership in order that, like Martin was proposing, be clear what each other is expecting, because sometimes it's not totally clear.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
Is it clear? Another question?
Hi, thank you, Shirama. I really like the simple, clear framework that you put on your slides. I think I can take a lot from that. But one point on cost justification, it's really challenging. Do you have any more advice you could give us on that, please?
Yes, it is a challenge. As I said, the traditional view that companies have is around ROI, and anything you essentially bring that is less than 10%, 15%, 20%, that number goes up, is going to be a challenge. And many of these, essentially, if you just go very engineering-wise, based on the ROI, essentially is zero. So what I recommend is a matrix, using a matrix of influence and impact, and essentially ranking what really has the most influence and impact in essentially the projects that you have. I would recommend that you go after a challenge that is existing, and you can resolve that with a data analytics digitalization tool with the lowest cost. Once you do that, the trust comes to the organization that the solutions the solutions that you're choosing essentially is going to have some impact, and that paves the way for justification of the future one. So certainly going after the hardest one, toughest one, the one that has the most amount of cost and probably is going to show itself, after a few years, it's going to be harder to justify. So low-hanging fruit needs to come first, as long as they have
the impact to the organization, and then when the trust comes, then it's going to help for the future. That's my advice.
I want to add something that I've seen work, and it's like people work in food safety, you're not going to like me for this, but sometimes you also need to identify where you're spending money that you shouldn't. Example, right now I'm doing 40 tests a day. None of these tests had lead any actionable, never been positive for the last 2 years. Now I could cut that from 40 to 10 by doing some compositing. Now I've freed 30 tests times $20 a day times 365 days. That is a substantial sum of money. Where could I invest that and therefore increase food safety and more than make up the slight decreased risk if I cut those tests? And that's where these risk assessments come in. Say, hey, I can do less tests, but I can hire another person in sanitation. I can replace that equipment sooner. I can do preventive maintenance more often. Many of these will drive more food safety investment. So sometimes we say, we give up here to get money there.
I think the hammer and nail comes to mind when I think about your question. Technology companies, sorry. They're the hammer, right? They'll come in and they'll sell you on these fantastic things that this piece of technology can do for you. And you have to step back and say, is it a nail? Or what's the problem that we're trying to solve, right? Because tech is an enabler. It's not the problem. It's an enabler to a solution to your problems. But I think we often comment it the other way around. We see the same in culture. When we start to work with a company, the first question out of any of our mouths is, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Because if you just want to be compliant, put a check in the box, hey, we've got tools for that. If you actually want to make a difference, then we've got some different ways of working, right? So I think hammer and nail comes to mind as well, and I think it really builds on Shahram's point with be sure that you go after that. What's the biggest pain point? And here's how we're going to solve for that. I know that's not necessarily quantifiable in an ROI, right? But it's rational, and you can talk about that rationally with your leaders as well, I believe.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's true that by quality and food safety, basically we are seeing like a cost avoidance, and it's difficult to compete when there is no return of investment. It's the reality. So, and about this, I think that the point of Shahram trying to really, instead of looking in the cost avoidance, how we can really improve the other performance metrics, the efficiency, and different KPIs that all the manufacturing facilities has. I think that is going to be a very good approach. Obviously, you need to be present. You can also sell other benefits of looking into quality and food safety, moving to quality 4.0, trying to reduce the manual testing by implementing technology and so on, but we know that is difficult. But the only thing is be present, training the decision makers, letting them understand what is the benefits, not only in cost avoidance. Is the only way that is working.
Yeah, it's okay.
Just one other thing, because my good colleague here, he just provoked me a little bit. We have to change our mind as food safety and quality professionals. We can't see ourselves as cost centers. It's entirely wrong. And that's why we wanted to do the session as well. We are enablers of business performance, right? So we've got to twist this around in our own heads as well and say, every time that we make a change where we are discarding less product, where we get product in the door, or supplied material that can't be used, every time we avoid that from happening, we save money for the company, right? It's the very definition of cost of quality. Increasingly, and there's a reason why the sample size on that top leading indicator on my slide is so small at the moment, but increasingly we're seeing if leaders in food companies are to take food safety in as a business performer, then we have to give them an indicator that they can put at par with their financial performance, their effectiveness, and everything else that's important at that business level, right? But that transformation starts with us in this room. We cannot think of ourselves as just a cost center because then we've lost the battle. I'm sorry.
Good. If you want to react, you know it's a round table, so no problem. If you have another question, we have time for, let's say, 2 extra questions.
Lone coming right back at you.
Yeah.
So in the case study that you gave us, it was what I would call a top-down approach. You started with CEO strategy.
Yep.
And then year by year, it pushed down the organization.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of a bottom-up approach, which frankly I see a need more of, when we're having a harder and harder time convincing the C-suite we even need to do this? We're having a hard time convincing them we are not a cost
Yeah.
center. So can you give an example of a bottom-up approach and then how we change that conversation with the C-suite to convince them we need to implement this in the first place?
We cannot do bottom-up if we don't have top-down as well. Because if you start to do a bottom-up culture change, you're going to have so many frustrated people meeting that leaders are setting different directions that they're going to start leaving you. I guarantee you. But what you need to do is you need to find a way to put this in front of CEOs in a different way than as avoiding risks or being compliant. So I think it's not actually about that we need to do bottom-up. I think it's about that we have to change the narrative. Just like our business leaders have to teach us to speak business, we have to teach them to speak food safety, right? But that means that we have to measure some different things. This company, Melanie, they're ready to get into the bottom-up type change from the front line, right? Where they're going to see the frontline teams being innovative around how they want to see food safety working in their area. That's going to be consolidated up into middle management, who's then going to take the management and enable those frontline teams to act that way. But if you start there with saying to your frontline teams, hey, what would you like to see different for food safety? And the first thing they see is a supervisor that says, we don't have time for that. They're going to shut them down, and you won't get them back, right? So we have to just acknowledge that when we talk about culture and setting direction for food companies, there are people that are paid a lot more than, at least me, to make decisions around where food safety companies or where food companies are going, right? And then this company in particular, so they're in that stage 3 right now. They're going to see things coming down from the top and up from the bottom as well. Perfect situation. Yeah.
Who else would like to react?
Yeah, I'm going to challenge a little bit. And
Really?
we've been in plants, and I think the problem starts with the term food safety culture. If you don't consider the bottom, we go in and we talk about culture, they're like, well, we don't do French food. We don't do white claws dinner. What the fuck is culture? I'm sorry. Right? And they don't get it. And if you don't start bottom up to build this, maybe at the same time as top down, you end up with the confusion on the bottom, which is what we have right now in a large number of companies we go into. We need to fix that.
So I think it's a matter, Martin and I, we do this constantly, by the way. Last time in Singapore, I had a lever. I could actually push him off the stage. It's about definition here, right? So does it mean because your leadership team is taking accountability that you're leaving out your front line? No. But does it mean that when it comes to where you're going with your company from a food safety perspective, it has to be owned by your leadership? Because you can get your frontline teams rallied up till the 4th or nth degree, and they're going to meet a wall at some point if you don't have your leadership. I guarantee you. And I would actually challenge you, then don't go in and work with the front line. You got to go in and work with the senior leadership teams, right?
Thank you.
Here's my lever, Martin.
To react. Wait.
I just wanted to add something. I do not want to make a comment about top-down, bottom-up, but I do want to say that it is quality team responsibility to promote quality to the higher level of the organization. If in an organization, quality team don't feel that the commitment exists, one of the main responsibilities that they have is go and have the conversation with the leadership. Try to convince leadership that this is important by a business language, by bringing tools that they see value in that, in order to get to leadership to buy in, because I do agree that leadership need to buy in. I do agree also that the engagement matters. Engagement at the lower level matters, and both need to marry with each other. But if we think that the leadership is not there, it is our responsibility. Nobody else is going to do that unless a disaster happens. It is our responsibility as a food safety professionals to educate them, and we need to do all of our efforts to do that.
Well, to finalize maybe my point of view, I will agree that we need to start from top to bottom. Later on, you can push bottom to top, but the beginning is that the leadership team needs to be convinced that spending time on improving quality and food safety culture matters. Otherwise, nothing is going to change.
Yeah. You have something to add? Because we have no time for an extra question, but if you want to add something,
Someone's very excited.
We have just 1 minute.
One comment from a techie in the room. I'm not going to talk about technology. I'm going to talk about culture in support of your comment on culture. And Martin, whether they call it culture or not, every organization has a culture. And how do you observe a culture? Is by behaviors. What is culture? It's values. So I do believe the leadership can set the direction for a culture by setting out the values of the organization and articulating those clearly. And as they do say in Silicon Valley, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Thank you. Okay, so that's done. What I would say, if it is possible to have the screen here. So thanks a lot for the question and particularly for the answers we got from the experts. I would like just you to introduce that we are editing the second edition of the Neogen Environmental Monitoring Handbook. You can scan the barcode, you can come to the booth in order to get this handbook. It's a very useful tool, and I would like also to invite all of you to visit our booth at 6:30 in order to continue this session. I'm very frustrated because I had questions I couldn't ask. They are so huge expertise, so it takes time to answer to the questions. So come to the booth at 6:30. We will have a drink together, and it will be the right moment in order to continue this session. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.